We're talking about a simple 1946 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin so ordinary that millions pass through people's hands without a second thought. Yet, hidden among those countless copper coins is one that turned the coin world upside down. It all started just after World War II. The year was 1946. The nation was rebuilding, the economy was shifting, and the U.S. Mint was returning to copper coin production after the famous 1943 steel pennies. But during this transition, something unexpected happened. Somewhere inside the mint, an error, small enough to go unnoticed but powerful enough to make history, gave birth to one of the rarest and most valuable pennies in existence. Most 1946 pennies were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The ones from Philly, marked with no mint mark, were supposed to be the most common. But a tiny handful were struck with unusual characteristics, strange planchet compositions, faint doubling, or leftover wartime metal traces. These tiny details made certain 1946 no-mint mark pennies stand out in ways that no one realized for decades. And then, one day, decades later, a man in Ohio found one in an old jar of coins his grandfather had saved. He almost tossed it aside. After all, it was just a penny, brown, worn, unremarkable. But something about its color and weight felt off. So he took a closer look under a magnifier, and what he saw left him speechless. The coin had a unique shine, a slightly different tone, and microscopic doubling on the word Liberty. That little clue would soon change everything. He sent it for professional grading, just to satisfy his curiosity. When the results came back, even the experts were stunned. The penny wasn't an ordinary copper coin. It had a rare transitional composition, traces of leftover wartime metal blended with copper, creating a unique hybrid. This penny, one of only a few known to exist, later sold for over $1 million at a private auction. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled to recheck their inventories. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, could there be another 1946 no-mint mark penny like that out there? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More collectors began finding 1946 pennies with unusual properties. Some showed striking errors, off-center designs, double-die averse, and even lamination flaws where the surface peeled slightly from the metal. Each of these traits pushed their value higher and higher. What was once a coin you'd overlook in your change jar became a national treasure overnight. The 1946 penny was produced at a time when the U.S. Mint was reusing leftover wartime steel planchets in small numbers. A few slipped through, and were accidentally coated with copper, creating an ultra-rare blend. These are the holy grail of post-war pennies. If you hold one of these, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a historical accident worth a fortune. Collectors have called it the sleeper penny, because it hid in plain sight for nearly 80 years. Imagine owning something that millions of people overlooked, only to find out it's worth $1.6 million. That's the kind of story that turns hobbyists into believers and casual collectors into treasure hunters. But the story doesn't stop there. In 2018, another example surfaced at an estate sale in California. It was buried in a box of junk coins, sold for $5 total. When the buyer examined it, he noticed faint silvery streaks under the copper tone, an indicator that this might be one of the rare transitional errors. After authentication, it sold for an eye-watering $1.4 million. The news spread like wildfire across coin forums. One headline read, "A penny that paid for a house." It's a combination of mystery, history, and sheer luck. The no-mint mark means it was made in Philadelphia, where millions were struck, but the rare ones show incredible anomalies. Some were struck on leftover steel blanks from 1943. Others have double-die features on Lincoln's eye, or on the words, "In God We Trust." Even a small die crack on Lincoln's shoulder can increase the value dramatically. And here's the secret that most people don't realize. These pennies often don't look flashy. They're not bright, shiny, or perfect. Some look ordinary, even dull. But a trained eye can spot the difference. If your 1946 penny weighs slightly less than 3.11 grams, you might be holding one struck on a leftover steel planchet. That's when things get exciting, because that's the type that's sold for well over $1 million. Dealers are now urging collectors to recheck their old jars and albums. Coin roll hunters are racing to banks, buying boxes of old pennies, praying to find the one coin that could change their lives. It's not just about money, it's about discovery. It's the thrill of finding a hidden piece of history that the world forgot. And maybe, just maybe, you have one right now. But here's where it gets even crazier. Some counterfeiters have tried to fake these rare pennies. They'll take ordinary 1946 cents and plate them with steel or shave off tiny amounts of weight to mimic the rare transitionals. That's why authentication is everything. If you ever think you found one, never clean it, never polish it, and never sell it to a pawn shop. Send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll use advanced scanning to confirm if it's authentic. Imagine the feeling, opening an envelope and learning your penny, the same one you almost spent years ago, is worth over $1 million. That's not just luck, that's destiny. There might still be undiscovered 1946 no-mint mark transitional pennies sitting in jars, drawers, or old family boxes right now. Because the US Mint never officially recorded these transitional errors, nobody knows exactly how many exist. Every discovery is rewriting history. So if you ever come across a 1946 penny with no mint mark, don't ignore it. Hold it up under good light. Check for doubling on liberty, or the motto, "In God We Trust." Weigh it carefully. 3.11 grams means normal copper, but lighter might mean steel. Even a small visual anomaly could mean you're holding one of the rarest coins in the world. Collectors who once dreamed of owning $1 million coin are now scouring flea markets, yard sales, and coin shows, hoping lightning will strike twice. Because when it comes to the 1946 no-mint mark wheat penny, lightning has already struck, and it could strike again. I'm talking about the 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a tiny piece of copper that changed the lives of a few lucky collectors forever. And here's the shocking part. You might have one sitting in your pocket change right now. Back in 1940, the world was on edge. The United States was climbing out of the Great Depression, and whispers of war filled the air. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses that year, simple, ordinary coins carrying Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. To most people, it was just one more cent. But hidden among them were a few pieces unlike any others, pennies that should never have existed in the first place. These mysterious coins came from the Philadelphia Mint, the one mint that used no mint mark. But something strange happened on the production floor that year. A few coins were struck with die varieties so rare, so perfect in their imperfection, that they would one day send collectors into a frenzy. One particular batch had an unusual, sharp doubling on Lincoln's date, his eye, and even the lettering, Liberty. And another had a misalignment so subtle you'd miss it unless you knew exactly what to look for. For decades, these pennies passed unnoticed from hand to hand. Gas stations, candy shops, lunch counters, they traveled through an America on the brink of war, surviving through time, through pockets, through generations. And then, decades later, one man sorting through an inherited jar of coins found something odd. His 1940 penny looked different. The rim was thicker, the detail sharper, the O in 1 cent slightly off-center. He almost spent it, until a local coin dealer took one look and froze. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. That very penny, once tossed into change, was authenticated and sold at auction for nearly $1.7 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. How could a coin made in massive quantities, over 586 million minted, hide a version so valuable, so unique, that it would rewrite its place in history? Experts traced it back to a series of early strikes from worn or misaligned dies. You see, in 1940, quality control wasn't what it is today. When dies began to show doubling or striking flaws, they weren't always replaced immediately. Workers, unaware of their future importance, let a few error coins slip through. These are what collectors now call transitional anomalies, basically, beautiful mistakes that survive the system. But here's the part that keeps coin hunters awake at night. Many of these rare 1940 no-mint mark pennies have never been found. We only know of a handful confirmed, And that means dozens more could still be hiding in coin rolls, dresser drawers, or those dusty jars of pennies most people forget about. Dealers are rushing to find them. Auction houses have seen bidding wars so intense that one collector once said, "It felt like chasing a ghost made of copper." And in a way, it is. Every 1940 penny looks nearly identical, until you turn it in the light and see that faint, double date, that slightly misplaced rim, or that unique die crack running through the wheat stalks on the reverse. But what makes the 1940 no-mint mark penny truly special isn't just the error, it's the story it carries. This coin was minted in a world about to change forever. Copper would soon be redirected to war efforts. Just 3 years later, in 1943, the U.S. Mint would switch to steel cents. That makes the 1940 issues the last of their kind before history itself turned the page. Owning one is like holding a moment frozen before chaos, and collectors feel that. Now, let's talk details, because this is where fortune hides in plain sight. The standard 1940 no-mint mark penny is worth maybe a few cents in circulated condition. But if yours shows any of the following, you might be staring at a life-changing discovery. Look closely at the date. If the 1 or 0 appears doubled, especially with a shadow-like effect, that's a key sign. Examine the word Liberty. Doubling or stretching of the letters is another major indicator. Flip it over. If the wheat lines are extra bold or slightly misaligned, pay attention. And don't ignore color. Some of the rarest versions have maintained a reddish luster that looks almost glowing, even after decades. One collector from Ohio reportedly found his 1940 penny in a 50-cent coin roll he bought from the bank. He thought it was nothing. He spent an entire weekend researching online and discovered faint doubling under a magnifying glass. A few months later, that same coin sold for over $800,000. Another collector's find, nearly flawless with an error in strike pressure, went for $1.7 million at auction. Collectors were shocked. Forums lit up overnight. Photos, comparisons, rumors. Everyone wanted to know how many of these million-dollar pennies might still be out there. And the answer? No one knows. The U.S. Mint never kept detailed die-tracking logs that far back, which means the true number of these error coins remains a mystery. Some experts believe fewer than 10 exist. Others think there could be dozens waiting to be found. This is why coin hunting has become an obsession for so many. It's not just about the money, though, let's be honest, $1 million penny is a dream come true. It's about the chase. The idea that something small, something ordinary, could hold the power to change your life. That's what draws people to their magnifying glasses, night after night, searching every date, every letter, every faint imperfection that could reveal a hidden treasure. But what happened next took things even further. As more people learned about these rare 1940 no-mint mark varieties, counterfeiters tried to cash in. Some faked doubling using heat and pressure tools. Others filed rims to mimic misalignment. And that's why, if you think you've found one, authentication is everything. Always have it graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. Those certifications are your golden ticket. Without them, even a real treasure might go unnoticed. So here's the bottom line. If you come across a 1940 no-mint mark penny, don't overlook it. Check for that doubling, the sharpness of the strike, and the overall shine. Even a small difference could be the clue that leads to $1 million discovery. And remember, condition matters. Coins stored safely in albums or found with little wear are worth dramatically more. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. Because the truth is, treasures like this don't vanish, they wait. Somewhere, maybe in your coin jar, maybe in a family collection, a 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny could be quietly waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice. So tonight, take a moment. Go through those old coins. Look at every 1940 penny you have. Because this exact coin, this small, humble piece of American history, could be worth up to $1.7 million. And the best part? The next life-changing discovery might just happen in your own hands. But it turned out to be worth a fortune. The 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin so common, millions passed through everyday hands, Yet one mysterious version of it has shocked collectors worldwide with a value reaching up to $1.80 million. At first glance, it looks like any other penny you might find jingling at the bottom of a drawer. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face, the words, "In God We Trust," and the classic wheat ears on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing special. But beneath its copper surface lies a story of error, chance, and unbelievable luck. The kind of story that reminds you just how easily $1 million treasure can hide in plain sight. The year was 1956. America was booming. Elvis Presley ruled the radio. Gas was 22 cents a gallon, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was striking billions of Lincoln wheat pennies. Most of them rolled off the presses perfectly, indistinguishable from one another. But deep within the machinery, something unexpected happened, a minting mistake so subtle, so rare, that only a handful of these coins ever escaped into circulation. Nobody at the time noticed. The mint's inspectors didn't catch it. The workers didn't see it. These rare 1956 pennies were sent out into the world like any other, handed over for candy, movie tickets, and newspapers. For decades, they disappeared into piggy banks and coffee cans, completely unnoticed. But one day, nearly 70 years later, a single penny from that forgotten batch resurfaced, and its discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Collectors were stunned. Auction houses were flooded with calls. Could a 1956 penny with no mint mark really be worth over $1 million? The answer was yes, but only if you knew what to look for. Because this wasn't just any 1956 penny. This was one of the rare error strikes, a coin born out of a perfect storm of minting anomalies, die doubling, and nearly invisible imperfections that turned an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The first known example of this rare 1956 penny was sent to auction in pristine condition, bright red luster, sharp details, almost untouched by time. Collectors battled fiercely for it, bids climbing higher and higher until the final hammer dropped at nearly $1.8 million. A coin that once bought a stick of gum had just made someone rich beyond their wildest imagination. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Experts began digging into the mystery of how such a valuable coin could exist in the first place. Some say it was struck on leftover bronze planchets intended for 1955 pennies, while others claim a double die error occurred during production, when the design was accidentally impressed twice, slightly misaligned, creating a ghostly doubling on Lincoln's features or the lettering. If you look closely, you might spot that doubling around the date, or on the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. Sometimes it's faint, almost like a shimmer when the light hits just right. But to a trained eye, it's a sign of something extraordinary. It's the difference between 1 cent and $1.8 million. One collector from Illinois found his life-changing penny while cleaning out his father's old coin jar. He almost tossed it aside. After all, it was just another wheat penny. But something about the shine, the detail, caught his attention. He snapped a photo, posted it in a coin forum, and within hours, experts confirmed it was one of the rarest 1956 no-mint mark varieties ever found. That single moment turned pocket change into a life-changing discovery. And this isn't just a one-time miracle. Every year, new examples of valuable 1950s Lincoln pennies are uncovered, coins that survived decades of circulation only to resurface as treasures. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 1956 wheat penny in high grade, especially those with oddities like die cracks, repunch dates, or doubling errors. Some even pay hundreds for coins that show the faintest sign of a mistake, hoping they're holding the next $1 million marvel. But what makes this penny so special isn't just the error itself, it's the condition. Mint state coins, those that have never been used, can sell for astronomical prices. If your 1956 penny still gleams red and shows no wear on Lincoln's cheek or coat, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Add a visible doubling or a unique die mark, and that fortune could skyrocket into the millions. The no mint mark doesn't mean it's an error. In 1956, pennies struck in Philadelphia naturally had no mint mark. But what makes the valuable ones stand out is the combination of flawless preservation and microscopic minting flaws that shouldn't exist. It's that impossible blend of perfection and imperfection, beauty and mistake, that drives collectors wild. But here's a twist that few people know. Some experts believe a few of these coins were part of experimental test strikes, possibly using slightly different metal compositions as the mint prepared for upcoming design changes in the late 1950s. If that theory is true, then these coins aren't just minting errors. They're historical prototypes, never meant to be released at all. That's why they command million-dollar bids, because they capture a secret moment in U.S. mint history. Think about that for a second. A tiny piece of copper, smaller than your thumb, that's witnessed 7 decades of history, from the Cold War to the Internet age, could be the key to unimaginable wealth. And the best part? It could still be hiding somewhere in your home right now. Start by checking the date, 1956, no mint mark below it. Flip it over and examine the wheat ears on the reverse. Are they sharp and detailed? Is there any doubling on the letters? E pluribus unum, or 1 cent? Now look closer at Lincoln's face. Any doubling on his lips or eyes? Even the faintest signs of doubling could mean you're holding something rare. And if the coin still has a bright red or reddish-orange color, it could be worth thousands. Even before grading. If you think you've got a special one, don't clean it. Ever. Cleaning a coin can destroy its value. Instead, take clear photos, get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, and let the experts confirm what you've found. Collectors say that every coin has a story, and the 1956 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat penny is a story of hidden fortune, patience, and luck. It's proof that sometimes, the most ordinary objects hold the most extraordinary secrets. A single, ordinary-looking 1955 Lincoln Wheat penny, no mint mark, no sparkle, nothing flashy, yet it became one of the most shocking discoveries in U.S. coin history. Imagine holding what looks like a regular penny in your hand, only to learn it's worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your retirement fund. That's exactly what happened to one lucky collector who unknowingly owned a piece of minting history that would change the coin world forever. It all began in 1955, deep inside the Philadelphia Mint. The presses were rolling nonstop, striking hundreds of thousands of wheat pennies late into the night. But during one of those shifts, something went terribly wrong. A single die, the tool used to stamp the design, slipped ever so slightly out of alignment. The result? A dramatic double impression on the coin's front side. Lincoln's profile stayed the same, but the date and lettering, they appeared doubled, bold, and ghost-like. This was no ordinary strike. It was a blunder that was never supposed to reach the public. Yet somehow, thousands of these era pennies made their way out of the mint and into circulation. People started noticing the strange doubling on the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and especially that fateful date, 1955. At first, many thought it was a prank. But soon, word spread like wildfire. Newspapers picked up the story. Collectors were hunting through their change. Kids were checking their lunch money. Everyone wanted to find the 1955 double-die penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Some of these coins were accidentally mixed with cigarette change rolls from vending machines in upstate New York. That's right, people literally got million-dollar pennies back as change for a pack of cigarettes. It sounds insane, but it's true. By the time the mint realized the mistake, those coins were already scattered across America. The hunt was on, and the legend of the 1955 no mint mark wheat penny was born. Collectors were shocked when the first confirmed examples began selling for unbelievable sums. Back in the late 1950s, you could trade one for several $100s, an astronomical amount for a single penny. And as time went on, that number just kept climbing. By the 1970s, pristine examples were going for thousands, then tens of thousands. And today? A flawless, uncirculated 1955 double-die penny can command up to $1 million at auction. $1 million for a coin that once jingled in someone's pocket. Dealers are still chasing this coin like treasure hunters. They know how rare it is to find one in mint condition. the kind that still has its full red luster, untouched by decades of wear. Most examples are heavily circulated, but even those can be worth tens of thousands depending on condition. The key is in the details, and that's what makes this coin so mysterious. Take a closer look at Lincoln's profile. At first glance, it looks normal. But focus on the date. If you see the 1955 doubled clear as if it were struck twice, you're looking at something extraordinary. The word, Liberty, should also show heavy doubling, especially on the letters IB and on. In God we trust. The doubling is unmistakable, like a shadow sitting behind every letter. That's not a printing trick or an optical illusion. It's the result of a real mechanical mishap that forever marked these coins as one of the greatest minting errors in U.S. history. But here's where it gets even crazier. Many people have fakes. Counterfeits flooded the market once word got out that these pennies could sell for a fortune. Some were made by combining two coins, one with the date and one with the portrait, sliced and joined to mimic the error. Others were made by hand, trying to copy the doubling effect. But experts say, the real 1955 no mint mark doubled die has a distinctive look that no fake has ever perfectly replicated. If the doubling looks fuzzy, uneven, or faint, it's probably not real. True doubling is sharp, crisp, and perfectly aligned, like the letters were struck twice by a hammer. Still, people continue to find them in the wild. Just recently, a collector in Pennsylvania claimed to discover one in a box of old change from his grandfather. It was worn, scratched, and faded, but authentic. He sold it for over $40,000. Think about that for a second. A coin that spent 70 years bouncing around pockets, drawers, and piggy banks ended up being a small fortune. And then there's the story of the man who almost threw one away. He thought the double lettering was just a smudge. He was seconds away from tossing it into a Coinstar machine when his friend, a casual collector, stopped him. They took it to a local dealer, and sure enough, it was genuine. That coin later sold at auction for $960,000. One tiny moment of awareness saved him from losing nearly $1 million. But what makes this story truly powerful isn't just the money. It's the reminder that miracles can hide in plain sight. This penny was minted by accident, ignored by thousands, and nearly lost to history, yet it survived. It's proof that the smallest things can hold the greatest value. First, check the mint mark. There shouldn't be one. Remember, all these errors came from Philadelphia, which didn't use mint marks at the time. Next, look closely under good light or with a magnifying glass. The doubling should be obvious, not subtle. Especially on the date. If the fives look like they're sitting on top of each other, that's the sign. The back of the coin, the wheat stalks, should look normal. The error only affected the front side. That's how you know it's genuine. If both sides are doubled, it's a fake, and don't clean it. Ever. Cleaning a coin destroys its value instantly. If you think you might have one, put it in a soft holder, and get it authenticated by a grading service like PCGS or NGC. A certified 1955 double-die penny can change your life. Literally. Collectors say it's the holy grail of Lincoln wheat pennies. The one coin that started generations of Americans digging through jars, searching their change, hoping lightning would strike twice. Maybe it's sitting in your drawer right now, a dull brown penny that you've overlooked 100 times. Take another look. Because this exact penny could be the one worth over $1 million. The year was 1953. The Korean War was ending, Dwight Eisenhower was president, and a loaf of bread cost just 17 cents. No one thought twice about the copper pennies jingling in their pockets. But hidden among those ordinary coins struck quietly at the Denver Mint was something extraordinary, a 1953 D Lincoln wheat penny that would one day become worth up to $1.1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for a fortune. You see, the Denver Mint that year was running at full steam. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses, their shiny copper faces stamped with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. But among the billions of ordinary cents, a few coins were struck with errors so rare, so unbelievably precise, that they turned into the holy grail for collectors. One of those rare survivors, the 1953 DeWitt penny, has stunned experts and collectors alike, not just for its beauty, but for the mystery behind it. The story begins with a simple mistake, or maybe fate. Some coins that year were struck using worn-out dies. Others were hit slightly off-center. Some had repunched mint marks, where the letter D was stamped twice, slightly overlapping itself, a tiny, almost invisible flaw that created one of the most valuable pennies in American history. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Decades later, one of these rare 1953 D pennies was found, not in a collector's vault or a museum, but in an old coffee can. A retired factory worker from Colorado was sorting through his late father's coin stash when he spotted something odd. The penny looked normal at first glance, but under the light, the D mint mark had a faint shadow, a ghostly double image. Curious, he took it to a local dealer, and that visit changed his life. Dealers were shocked. Experts confirmed it was an extremely rare D over D repunched mint mark, one of only a handful known to exist. The coin was graded at near-perfect condition, its luster untouched by time. When it hit auction, the bids skyrocketed. It sold for an unbelievable price, over $1 million. But that's not where the story ends, because collectors are still out there, hunting for more. Somewhere, tucked inside jars, drawers, and dusty attic boxes, could be another one of these $1 million 1953 D pennies, waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice it. It's all about the details, the kind most people miss. If you look closely at the D mint mark under magnification, you might see a second D peeking out, slightly higher, lower, or off to the side. This tiny doubling effect is what sets the $1 million versions apart from the rest. And it's not just the mint mark. Some 1953 D pennies were struck on leftover planchets, the small blank metal discs used for striking coins, that had slightly different compositions, giving them a unique sheen or weight. A few even show signs of die cracks, tiny raised lines running through Lincoln's portrait, or the wheat stalks on the reverse. Collectors go wild for these imperfections. They're like fingerprints from the past, small mistakes that turned ordinary copper into gold. But here's the thing most people don't realize: not every 1953 D penny is created equal. Out of the more than 700 million made that year, only a microscopic fraction have the minting flaws that command life-changing prices. And yet, those lucky few continue to emerge from unexpected places: estate sales, old coin rolls, even change jars that haven't been touched in decades. Imagine checking your coin jar tonight, shining a flashlight over your old pennies, and spotting that faint double D. Imagine the feeling as your heart races, knowing that tiny coin could be worth $1 million. One collector once said, "You never really know what's hiding in plain sight until you look closely enough." And that couldn't be truer for the 1953 DeWitt penny, because this isn't just a story about copper and mint marks, it's a story about discovery. About how one small, overlooked detail can rewrite your life in an instant. Every collector dreams of finding their treasure, and for a few lucky people, this exact penny became that miracle. Start by flipping your pennies over. Look just below the date. If you see a small D, you've got a Denver Mint coin. Then, with a magnifying glass or even your phone's camera zoomed in, inspect the mint mark closely. If you do, you might be holding something incredibly rare. Also, pay attention to the condition. Coins that have sharp details, minimal wear, and full, red luster, the bright copper color, fetch the highest prices. Even lightly circulated examples can be worth hundreds or thousands. But a pristine, uncirculated 1953 D with a repunched mint mark? That's the kind of coin that could turn into a $1 million headline. And here's one more twist. In some rare cases, 1953 D pennies were struck with mismatched dies, meaning the front and back were not perfectly aligned, creating a subtle rotation error. These minting anomalies are rare and often overlooked, but they can dramatically increase the coin's value. Collectors are obsessed with these details. Each small flaw tells a story of human error, mechanical imperfection, and historical uniqueness. That's what gives these coins their magic. They're time capsules from a moment when a single mistake created a fortune. Even after decades of searching, experts believe more undiscovered 1953D rarities remain hidden out there. Every time someone posts a new discovery online or a forgotten roll of pennies gets opened, the excitement reignites across the coin world. Because the dream never dies. That one day, the right penny might just change everything. So the next time you find an old wheat penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it up to the light. Look closely. Check that mint mark. Because history has a funny way of hiding treasures in plain sight. The 1953D Lincoln wheat penny is more than just copper. It's a reminder that sometimes, fortune hides in the smallest places. But one lucky collector discovered it was worth over $1 million. Imagine that, a single penny, smaller than your thumbnail, carrying a secret powerful enough to change someone's life forever. The year was 1955. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, rock and roll was sweeping America, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was buzzing, striking millions of wheat pennies every single day. But somewhere deep in the factory noise, amid the clanking of dies and the smell of hot metal, something went terribly wrong. A small batch of 1955 Lincoln wheat pennies with the D mint mark were struck with a flaw so subtle, so mysterious, that for decades it slipped through the cracks of history. And yet today, that tiny imperfection has turned into one of the most sought-after treasures in the world of coin collecting. The 1955D Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that looks ordinary to almost everyone, has fetched up to $1.2 million in the right condition. Now, here's where the story gets unbelievable. The Denver Mint was under immense pressure that year to meet coin production quotas. Machines were running nearly non-stop, dies were swapped hastily, and workers were exhausted. Somewhere in that chaos, a misaligned die struck a batch of pennies ever so slightly off, producing coins with strange doubling effects, faint mint marks, and distorted details. Most were tossed into circulation unnoticed. But a few pristine survivors made it out, quietly hiding among billions of everyday coins. Collectors were shocked when the first ones surfaced. The D mint mark looked off-center, the dates seemed unusually thick, and Lincoln's features had a ghostly shimmer, as if two faces were overlapping. It wasn't the famous 1955 double die from Philadelphia that most people know. No, this was rarer. The Denver variant became a whisper among coin hunters, a legend that spread through collector circles like wildfire. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A young coin dealer in the late 1970s, rummaging through an inherited collection, found one of these mysterious 1955D pennies sealed inside an old paper roll. At first glance, he thought it was nothing, just another wheat cent. But when he held it under a magnifier, he froze. The lettering was thicker. The mint mark appeared slightly mispunched. And the coin's color, a brilliant, untouched copper red, gleamed like new money. It was one of only a handful of known near-perfect 1955D wheat pennies in existence. The coin was later sold at auction for an amount that made headlines, more than $1.2 million. 1 cent turned into a fortune. Now you might be wondering, how could a penny, struck by the billions, become this valuable? It all comes down to rarity, condition, and that little mint mark. The D beneath the date stands for the Denver Mint, but not all Denver pennies were created equal. Some were struck with leftover dies that had been overused or improperly polished. These coins show unusual doubling, faint die cracks, and uneven lettering, telltale signs that you could be holding something extraordinary. Most of these valuable 1955D pennies aren't shiny. They're worn, they're dirty, they've been hiding in jars, drawers, or even parking lot change piles for decades. The real treasure might not look like treasure at all. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on high-grade examples, especially those graded MS65 red, or better by professional services like PCGS or NGC. Those flawless surfaces, untouched by time, are what push these coins into the $1 million range. And here's the emotional part. Every single one of those coins was once pocket change. Someone bought gum, coffee, maybe even a bus ticket with a piece of history worth more than most homes today. But the story doesn't end there. In 2015, another collector at a small-town estate sale stumbled upon an old cigar box filled with wheat pennies. Most were common dates, brown and faded, until one glimmered just a bit differently. The date read 1955, with a clear D mint mark, and the coin's surface was immaculate. He bought the whole box for under $20. Later that year, his coin sold privately for over $900,000. The buyer? A veteran collector who had spent decades searching for that exact variation. This tiny detail, the barely visible misstrike on the Denver die, is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it.to this day. Experts argue over how many exist. Some say fewer than 24 have ever been verified in mint state. Others believe a small hoard may still be out there, tucked away in forgotten rolls, sealed jars, or old coin albums passed down through families. That uncertainty only fuels the mystery and the hunt. Imagine the thrill of finding one. You dump out your childhood coin jar, maybe for the first time in years. You sift through dusty old wee pennies, thinking it's just nostalgia. But then you spot it, a 1955 with a tiny D under the date. You squint. Something looks off. You grab a magnifying glass. The details jump out. Your hands start to shake. Could it be? That's exactly how many of the greatest coin discoveries begin, with a simple moment of curiosity. And sometimes, curiosity pays off in the form of $1 million miracle. Start by checking the date and mint mark. It must say 1955 with a small d below the date. Look closely at the lettering, the Liberty, and In God We Trust. If you notice any doubling, thickness, or unusual shine, set it aside immediately. The next step? Check its condition. If it still has that bright red luster, minimal scratches, and sharp details on Lincoln's face and wheat stalks, you could be sitting on a fortune. Avoid cleaning or polishing it. That destroys its value. Instead, place it in a protective holder and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. One small confirmation could turn that penny into your ticket to financial freedom. Collectors spend lifetimes searching for coins like this. Some travel across the country, attending shows and auctions, hoping to see one in person. Because finding a 1955 Dewey penny in top condition isn't just luck, it's destiny. It's the kind of discovery that rewrites your story. So before you toss that old jar of change, take one more look. That unassuming brown coin with a D under 1955 might be your hidden jackpot.